With only a little bit more than one day before the key political event in the United States and globally, the United States election, we are seeing this political process as one of the most important, if not most challenging process in the world and probably in the recent United States history, if not in the entire history of the United States, when when we speak about elections, with extremely divisive rhetoric, at least by the Republican nominee, Mr. Trump, with avalanches, if not hurricanes, of disinformation, misinformation, and false narratives such as they're eating the dogs, they're eating the cats and pets, or other false narratives that we've heard, including already preparation of the part of the Republican, or more precisely, MAGA followers, that the elections are going to be stolen. And as well as heightened security measures all across the United States, having in mind that the tensions are quite high, and the election race between the nominees, Vice President Kamala Harris and former President Donald Trump, the race is neck to neck, very tensed, and accompanied with a lot of intrusion from global foreign centers of power, mainly from Moscow. There is evidence of Russian influence already in the past, as well as in this election process. With all this said, and with everything that still needs to be revealed, I'm speaking to Kim Devlin, a political strategist from the United States. It's 1 o'clock, 1 p.m. more or less in New York, and 7 p.m. in Skopje, North Macedonia. And I say, hi, hello there, Kim, how are you?
Hi, Jabir. I'm good. I'm good. I'm anxious, but good.
I can imagine. I don't think I can imagine how busy and anxious you are. But that means that I should go on straight forward with the questions that are most pressing at the moment. So I'll just go with the questions, please. What's the situation on the election battleground now in the United States? Only 1.5 days, let's say, before the election day.
Right, right. So, it seems to be a dead heat. Like nobody can declare. The only two people in the entire United States who seem to be clear about who wins are the two nominees, Kamala Harris and Donald Trump, and their respective camps. But the polls seem to be dead even, especially in the battleground states. And I have to tell you, I'm not sure how much I really trust the polls much anymore. I mean, I rely on them in my own campaigns that I work on. It's like, if you don't, to me, if you don't utilize your polling to help at least play into your strategy, then you're kind of flying blind. And I don't ever like to do that. But regarding it's like even I have become cynical, which is really sad because I've never, ever, ever been cynical. But then I'm like, well, how much are they playing up this dead heat for the media so people stay tuned in? I mean, to be honest, it certainly helps both campaigns for it to be a dead heat because then you have your supporters thinking they need to work more and more and more, which is great, which is good. I have to imagine both campaigns like that. But I don't know. I mean, we'll know the results when we know the results, but there have been things that, some people say, well, the polling, doesn't account for all of the votes, like Trump always underperforms in the polls. But they said that in 2020 and he very solidly lost in 2020. So, I mean, interesting fact that I harp on all the time here in the US, and that is Trump, again, my opinion, Trump lost the popular vote in 2016. He did win the electoral college, which made him the president. I'm not sure how much Russian influence went into that. I think quite a bit. But the facts are that he lost the popular vote, won the electoral college. That was in 2016. 20 um I 20 maybe 19, which were not federal elections, but there were a lot of municipal elections around the
Right.
country,
Right.
and the Republicans did terrible. The Democrats actually did really solid. Then you had on 2018, I'm sorry, that you did have federal elections.
Right.
The Democrats in the congressionals did much better than expected in those elections. Then you had 2020, which Trump, clearly lost both the popular vote and the electoral college, which became, President Biden became the president from that. And then you had 2021, which were again municipal elections around the country. Democrats did great, Republicans did terrible. You had 2022, which I'm in New York right now. I'm actually on Long Island. We actually did not do well in the congressionals on Long Island, but it had nothing to do with the presidential. It was a complete and total local issues here. But the rest of the country, the Democrats did terrific. The Republicans did terrible. So the fact is, Trump is not really that successful on election day. We'll see what happens on Tuesday, but he's lost far more than he's won, which is strange since he has served as the president for 4 years, and is even stranger when you think about his influence over the Republican Party and at least probably half the country.
Yes, exactly. But the seems, at least from across the ocean, that the narratives that are promoted by the campaign of Mr. Trump are quite visible. And now we know that the Russian and few other global propaganda centers are helping him in spreading the misinformation and the false narratives, such as the cats and dogs, eating cats and dogs. What are the main narratives now of the MAGA followers, of Mr. Trump and the MAGA followers, that are actually capturing the attention of the United States voters, but also of the global attention?
Right. So from the campaign itself, which is not it's fake news, but it's not coming in from outside bad actors. It's actually the Trump campaign and his supporters, especially the MAGA supporters. I mean, if you listen to them, we have their word, illegals, you know, running our country, taking over our country, and it's only because of Joe Biden and Kamala Harris that our economy, if you elect Harris, we'll have no jobs, we'll have no trade, we'll, have Donald Trump actually said yesterday that if Kamala Harris wins, that the United States will go into a deep depression, Hoover style, within 3 days, So they're really ratcheting up the rhetoric. I think it comes from desperation and kind of, his strategy, which seems to be throw everything up at the ceiling and see what sticks. And the sad part is that some of it sticks. The good news is it really only sticks to the people who are already supporting him. So that's what the campaign itself, the MAGA force itself, is putting out there. You had mentioned the influence from outside, nations. Yes, definitely Russia. I think also Iran, China.
Yeah.
And they're much more sophisticated than they were like in 2016 and even 2020. They're much more sophisticated. They're actually much harder to track down, which is scary. They're making full use of artificial intelligence in that, if it's chat GPS or whatever it is, because in fact, the FBI just recently sent out a notice that there were two videos that were being shared pretty widely that were complete and total fake videos. And they have been tracked back to Russian, being created in Russia although they don't know exactly the origin of who did it, but they're in Russia, they're in Moscow. So
Uh,
one of them are, you had mentioned the eating cats and dogs, which were the Haitians in, I think it was Springfield, Ohio. I can't even remember now.
Springfield,
Yeah,
Ohio.
totally
Yes.
ridiculous, totally fake, totally made up. But now they have this video that seems to be making the rounds online of Haitian illegals voting in our elections, like going in
In
to vote early.
with several different ID cards.
Yes,
Yes, yes,
yes. And they have
that was the misinformation, the total disinformation, actually.
it's flat out fake. I mean, I know that
Right.
you probably being the head of an organization have to be um you have to be a little diplomatic potentially in how you talk about it. I once worked for Media Matters for America, which was a watchdog type group here in the US, media watchdog, and we too were not allowed to use the word lie or fake. It was misinformation or
Yes,
but
we
it
use slightly euphemistic expressions.
yeah,
That's right. But
they're fake. I mean,
like
I
you
can
are,
say it.
actually, they're fake,
Yeah,
and they're blatant lies.
they're blatant lies.
Most of the time when we
Yeah.
speak about this.
And the thing that is harmful, and so there's another video, a second video that the FBI, alerted to, which was it was shown someone. We have what we call absentee or mail-in balloting here in the
Right,
U.S.
right,
And anyway, so those ballots have been mailed in. In most states, they're not counted until after the polls close on election day.
right.
That may even be every state. Every state I've worked in, which are 15 states, that you have to wait until the polls close before you can count them. But supposedly, there was a woman that looked like she was in an election center, and there were paper ballots, which were the early vote ballots, the mail-in ballots that all voted for Trump, and she's tearing them up. That's fake.
Yeah,
But um, the reason that they're so harmful is because those are not being targeted to the MAGA voters. Those are being targeted to the swing voters or the undecided voters. And if they really believe that, these videos, and it's hard to not believe these videos, because they look
right.
so real, and, then that is potentially, definitely would hurt the Democratic ticket, the Democratic nominee, and they're fake. So,
Absolutely,
I don't,
absolutely harmful it is, especially because regardless of the demand to the social networks to take those posts down. Once the disinformation is out, and I know this from the experience with the disinformation monitoring team that I'm working with within civil, and it is that once the disinformation is out, it's very difficult to debunk it and to make people reconsider what they saw, and
yes,
to convince them that this is fake. It's much more easy to spread a lie, a disinformation, than to suppress it then, or to challenge it with actual facts. Kim, I want to ask you something personal. How do you, as a citizen of the United States, as a female, having in mind that we've heard extremely lots of misogynist messages from the
yeah,
Republican campus.
I'm going to protect the women whether they like it or not.
That was okay. I don't want to use all words that are in my mind speaking about that. Also being a father to a daughter, being a friend, a colleague, a son, and somebody who lives with the women, works with women, and exists with women on this earth. This is something that was, to put it the mildest way, very unpleasant and very surprising. So, how do you, as a citizen, as a woman, as an intellectual, having in mind that this campaign has been a lot of has seen a lot of anti-intellectualism in many ways. So, how do you feel personally?
So first of all, my mother thanks you for calling me an intellectual. That may be a first, but I appreciate that. It's scary. I mentioned to you, I think before you started recording, like I'm filled with anxiety. I can't sleep at night. I mean, I do have some candidates on the ballot. We're working very, very hard, but I think we'll be fine. The presidential election, though, is filling me with such deep anxiety, and I'm not really scared for myself. It's kind of like, hey, we can handle anything, but I do not have children as you do, but I have three nieces and a nephew who are the loves of my life, and I am so scared, even of my nephew, even though he's, male, obviously, but the whole secure way of life that has been, for the most part, the American experience for many, many, many Americans. I fear that it will go away under Trump if we get a second Trump presidency. I think a lot of it, went away after the first and during the first Trump presidency. So I'm very scared about the American way of life going by the wayside. I'm very scared about the opportunities that will not be there and the freedom that will not be there for so many Americans, especially younger Americans. My parents are elderly. I get scared of the kind of safety nets that are in place right now for the elderly in our country, that they're not going to be there. And we're the lucky ones, right? And so when I think about the less fortunate Americans, I mean, my heart just breaks. My fears are those, and I don't think they're unfounded. I think that I mean, you just have to listen to Donald Trump and what he talks about and what he says. Um, I do fear, one of my big fears right now is not enough Americans are taking it seriously. So if I can delve into a little story, an anecdote,
Yeah,
I think it
please.
may have been 2 or 3 weeks ago, but Kamala Harris they held a town hall on CNN with Anderson Cooper, and they had a group of undecided voters in Georgia, which is one of the battleground states. And I think it was 8 people. I think it might have been 4 women and 4 men, and they were truly undecided. And people say, "Oh, how can you be undecided?" It's not that they don't know anything about it. Honestly, they don't like either candidate. And so they're undecided in I'm not saying this, I know who my candidate is,
Right.
but in their way of thinking, they're undecided on the lesser of two evils. Okay, so that's what they're undecided about, but they were undecided. Just that day, it was reported in the New York Times that General John Kelly, who had been chief of staff for Donald Trump in the White House, said that Donald Trump had verbally said to him that he admired Putin, and that he wished that he had generals like Hitler had. And that was reported. It was all over the place, leading into this town hall. Um, Kamala Harris, of course, mentioned it during her first answer and
Right.
several other times. So then, post town hall, they do an interview with these 8 undecided voters who had viewed the town hall, were aware of what John Kelly had reported, had said that Trump said
Right.
to him. And the thing that was so alarming to me, it wasn't that they didn't care, it's that it was nothing to them. It was just like an annoying insect. Donald Trump, the Americans are exhausted by Donald Trump and his rhetoric, to the point where most Americans just tune it out. They either think it actually will not happen, or like some of these voters said, they said, you know what, he lies all the time. So he is a liar, which I find disqualifying to be president, but it actually is working in his favor right now in a weird way, because these voters who are undecided and very well may vote for him totally concede he's a liar. But because they know this about him and they don't find it disqualifying, they don't believe half of the things that are coming out of his mouth. And so they're not taking these threats that he's making seriously. And that is what really scares me. about how people will vote either up to this point during the early vote or mail-in voting, or who will vote on Tuesday. So that's a big fear of mine.
I'd like to I'd like to mention the security and safety of the voters and of the voting ballot itself. We've seen several incidents in the early voting phase, and there are some fears that the extremist groups might cause interruptions of the voting process. Do you think that an average decent American citizen voter would maybe be afraid of going to the polls on Tuesday, and
Um,
that might be one of the strategies of
I think so. To be honest with you,
one
Jabir,
of the
it's been a strategy for a long
contestants. Yes.
time. I mean, honestly, even Democratic campaigns have done it with, for example, African American voters in certain areas that, if you go to vote, if there's going to be a list of people with outstanding warrants, and if you vote, they're going to, if your name's on that list, you're going to get arrested right there at the polling. I mean, that's been something that's ongoing forever. As far as do I think the fears are more heightened? They're certainly trying that, I don't know. I don't know that there's been a lot of reporting that there are people who are too scared to vote.
Oh.
And I hope that that's not the case. I mean, it's just such an American right that we're so lucky to have, is the freedom to vote, who, secretly. It's a secret ballot. um Nobody will ever know who you voted for unless you decide to tell them. So I don't know. I hope that that's not the case. uh what I think is more alarming are people who are going to vote, but they're going to vote with information that is not accurate and not true, and that will influence their vote. And so that is an ignorant vote, in my opinion. And I think there's going to be a lot of ignorant votes cast on Tuesday and already. And that how that affects the election, I'm not sure, but it's a concern. I believe it should be a big concern.
So, what are your hopes then?
I am just an eternal optimist. I think Kamala's going to win, and I really am. My mother used to call me. I don't know if you guys would have the same, if this would mean anything to your viewers there in North Macedonia, but in the Western Balkans. But Pollyannish. I'm very Pollyannish, which means I just always think things will be good. My hope is that Kamala Harris soundly defeats Donald Trump um, on Tuesday, that the Democrats keep at least one of the houses, whether it's the U.S. Senate or the U.S. House. I do not believe, quite frankly, I think it's very healthy for democracy to be some friction. So I don't really think I would not personally want to see like the whole thing go Democrat or the whole thing go Republican. I think that's rife for potential corruption and danger. Um, but my hope is that she soundly defeats him. He will try to. He's already setting the stage now for, corrupted elections and voter fraud and such. I mean, he's
That's
already
right.
doing that in his desperation. But that, right now we do have systems in place, as we did on January, leading up to him trying to steal the election in 2020, that will stop him, but that he's soundly defeated, that he will go away, and that's wishful thinking, but that he'll never be a candidate on the ballot again. And that although I disagree on policy, almost policy for policy with the Republican Party as a whole, they used to be normal, and there's many, many, many normal Republicans, and I would like to see them take their party back and have a two system situation where we're not agreeing, but we're able to work together on the big
Right.
things, and we're able to compromise. And that the Donald Trump, I mean, the whole MAGA thing is not going to go away because Donald Trump has already shown that it can work. And there are so many, people coming up after him, including at this point his vice presidential candidate, JD Vance. But you know what the thing is? They're not Donald Trump. And not everybody can do what Donald Trump did. Nobody did it before Donald Trump did it. And so my hope is that he goes away, he loses interest, he decides to do something else, and that those who would try to follow in his footsteps do not find much traction. And that we go back to, I heard somebody say on a podcast earlier this week, not people like you or me or people, my colleagues, but, most Americans, most people, they don't even think about who the president is. Like they really focus in our country every 4 years when there is a presidential election. But you elect someone, they take office, and you hear their name on the news every now and again when you're paying attention. But for the most part, the president of the United States is not this constant presence that's going to affect your day or not. And I would like to see our country get back to that. And I am hopeful that we can. I don't know if that makes sense, but
Yes,
I'm
it does make sense, especially if we know that one of the candidates in the presidential race in the United States right now is obsessed by being present in the public discourse 24/7. However, I thank you very much and I hope the best for the democracy in the United States.
Thank you.